Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to another podcast brought to you by PM Powered, your consulting company on project, program, and portfolio needs. I'm Wanda Curley, your authority on project, program, and portfolio. Today I'm going to bring you several different things. There's no one common thread going throughout them. It's a little bit of AI. It's a little bit of how to, I don't want to call it manipulating, but ensuring that you get the best foot forward to your boss. And talking about the big dig that happened in Boston in the 90s in the United States. And let's see, what's the other one we have? There's 3 practical solutions to offset automation impacts of work. So why don't we get started? The first one is called, Can AI Detect Deep Fakes to Help Ensure Integrity of U.S. 2020 Elections? It's by IEEE Spectrum. And deepfakes, which I didn't know anything about, actually happens more often in the porn industry where they take videos of actors and actresses and other famous people and superimpose the faces onto porn films. And it's almost it's actually undetectable to the naked eye because they're getting better and better at it. But there's some startup industries that are looking into that. There's one that's in the Netherlands that's trying to actually stop deepfakes, or giving you the ability to understand that this, because what they're expecting that's going to happen is in the U.S. 2020 elections is there's going to be deepfake videos of our potential candidates to become president of the United States. So if somebody wants to manipulate our outcomes, they can do one of these deepfake photos of one of our politicians, and it can be catastrophic to that politician because we probably won't even know that it's a deepfake video until it's too late. And in fact, on this article, they show a deepfake of Jimmy Fallon actually talking to one of his guests, and they have superimposed Jimmy Fallon's face onto the guest's face. And let me tell you, it's very hard to tell the difference. To me, it looks like Jimmy Fallon, but it's obviously not him. So it's of such big concern that DARPA is actually looking into this. And let me tell you a little bit about what it says. Given the potential impact of deepfakes, there is increasing interest in detection tools. The U.S. Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA, has led the way by funding research through its media forensics projects focused on automatically screening for deepfake videos. In 2018, several academic institutions began releasing video training data sets for deepfake detection and building detection methods. So it's going to be AI that helps us in seeing these fakes, these deepfakes. And in 2018, September 2018, the AI Foundation raised $10 million to build a tool that uses both human moderators and machine learning to identify deceptive, malicious content such as deepfakes. And in December, the Symantec Corporation displayed its demo of a deepfake detector during the Black Hat Europe 2018 event in London. So you could see all of these companies are looking into how to detect deepfakes, because this could affect many things, not just politics. So think about it. Think about CEOs in companies that if they want to bring them down, they can do a deepfake video. It's just amazing to me what's going on in this area. So stay tuned and watch this area to see what companies are doing to counteract these deepfake videos. Okay, let's go to the next one, which is kind of way out in left field. It's called Goodyear's New Aero Concept Tire Transform into a Propeller for Flying Cars. Yes, flying cars are around the corner. They're going to be here sooner than we think. But one of the things that they're having issues with is, how do you put propellers on them? So how do you get it to fly? So Goodyear thinks they got the concept that is needed for flying cars, and it's their tires. So it's called the Aero, and it isn't an inflatable tire like we use today. Instead, Goodyear envisions using new flexible materials it has developed to absorb road shock, but be able to also deal with added stresses on the tire material as it transitions from the horizontal to the vertical. If you look at this, it looks like a jet engine because it's got all the little veins coming out of the center part. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with this. I can't imagine that we're going to see all kinds of flying cars like we did on the Jetsons, but they're coming. It's a way to beat urban congestion, but I think if we start going up into the air, we're going to see urban congestion in the air as well. So whilst much of this sounds super futuristic, Goodyear is working on many of these technologies right now. The airless tire design and the intelligence within the tire itself are features already in development and may appear in Goodyear tires in the not too distant future. So we may even see it on our tires on regular cars. So to me, that's absolutely amazing. And if you're a project manager on this, I would love to talk to you and have you on the podcast. So please contact me at wanda@pmpowered.com. So let's go to the next one. These are 3 practical solutions to offset automation's impact of work. So we keep on hearing that AI and IoT and all the automations that are coming in the future we're going to have massive job loss. Well, we've had, and some people are predicting up to 50%. We've had massive job losses due to technologies before. Think about when machines came in. Think about when the computer came in. But what had happened is, yes, we had massive current job losses, but we created just as many or more jobs. So how can we make sure that we help this along? And it's going to take public and private sector solutions to come along for this. So this article, which comes from Singularity Hub, has 3 suggestions. One is capture new opportunities through aggressive investment. So the rapid emergence of new technology promises a bounty of opportunity for the 21st century's economic winners. This technological arms race is shaping up to be a global affair. So what are some of the countries doing? So in Germany and China, they have 2 of the most notable growth strategies. Germany's Industry 4.0 plan targets a 50% increase in manufacturing productivity via digital initiatives. In China, they have Made in China 2025 national strategy, sets an ambitious target and provides subsidies for domestic innovation and production. It also includes building new concept cities, investing in robotic capabilities, and subsidizing high-tech acquisitions abroad to become the leader in certain high-tech industries. It takes input from the government to help with this growth that we're going to see. And I think we need to do that here in the United States as well. It's not only big countries that are doing it, but Estonia has also done it, and it's called Estonia's Progress. After the breakup of the Soviet Union is a good case study in transitioning to a digital economy. The nation rapidly implemented capitalistic reforms and transformed itself into technology-centric economy in preparation for a massive tech disruption. So that's one solution. The second solution is address increased rate of change with more nimble education systems. So education and training are currently not set for the speed of change that we have in our technological world. We need to build this learning environment that allows us to adapt to the new technologies that are coming out. There are still going to be the one-time learning education that we need. So primary schools and some universities will have to stay there. But we need lifelong learning, and universities need to adapt, and high schools need to adapt as well, because there's still going to be students that come straight out of high school and need to go into the technology environment quickly. So they'll be tradesmen, but they've got to teach them trades that are specific to the new technology world. Yes, we'll still have mechanics, and yes, we'll still have janitors and stuff like this, but I think we'll see that janitorial services will be taken over by robots. So even then, we'll have to have something for these people to do. So we need to have lifelong learning. We need to increase different education systems within the universities So I know where I teach, we have credentialing systems. So you could come in and take 4 or 5 different courses, and it teaches you about a certain thing. So we have credentialing in leadership. We have credentialing in neuro leadership. We have credentialing in different areas to enhance your learning. So we'll need to see universities doing credentialing in technology as well. So what's another one that we're looking at? It's enhanced social safety nets to smooth automation impacts. So what does this mean? Well, when we had industrial revolutions, we had different things happen in different years. So for example, in the United States in 1842, we had the right to strike. In 1924, child labor was abolished. In 1935, there was the right to unionize. In 1938, we went to 40-hour work weeks. It's hard to believe that that didn't happen until 1938. 1962 and 1974, we had trade adjustment assistance. 1964, we had pay discrimination was prohibited. In 1970, health and safety laws. And what's going to happen in the 21st century? AI and automation adjustments assistance. So we're going to have to see where labor laws are going to help with this disruption. So solutions like universal basic income, so no strings attached, they just give you money every month, are appealing in concept but somewhat difficult to implement. Although there has been a city in California that has implemented it for its citizens of that city. Countries that have high debts, that would be very difficult for them. And these countries are the U.S. and Japan. Additionally, a universal basic income may create disincentives to stay in the labor force. So you want to give people incentive to be in the labor force. A similar cautionary tale in program design was the trade adjustment assistance, which was designed to protect industries and workers from import competition shocks from globalization, but is viewed as a missed opportunity due to insufficient coverage. A near-term solution could come in the form of graduated wage insurance, compensation for those forced to take a lower-paying job, including health insurance subsidies to individuals directly impacted by automation, with incentives to return to the workforce quickly. Another topic to tackle is geographic mismatch between workers' and jobs, which can be addressed by a mobility assistance. Lastly, a training stipend can be issued to individuals as means to upskill. So there needs to be assistance for those that find themselves displaced or find themselves pushed down in the workforce. So people are willing to learn, but they sometimes don't have the ability to do so. And some people can't just get up and move because they don't have the means to do so. So learning is going to help us. In fact, I heard something on NPR that said people are learning a second language to get themselves out of poverty. So that is a good way. And if we have easy learning tools for us to learn, and this was an app that was being generated that was going to be free of charge to help you learn a second language. So these are all these good things that we can do to help us if you find yourself being displaced. So governments need to act, industries need to act, and we need to understand, and universities and high schools need to act as well. They need to understand what's going on in the world of technologies and be able to adapt to do that. So while we're talking about disruptions in technologies, how's a way of influence your boss without alienating them? And you got to be careful about that because we have to be able to manage upward is how I'd like to call it. So we are all accountable to someone, whether we are a middle manager supervised by a member of the C-suite or a CEO accountable to the company's board. But under the right circumstances, this reporting relationship can be a two-way street. In addition to taking orders, savvy subordinates can find ways to influence those above them. So what's one way to do it? The first one is to set an example. You need to make sure that your bosses know that what you are doing is professional and provides a level of credibility and competency to their supervisor. You've got to be able to show this to your supervisor. So if you show your supervisor that you're setting a professional example from the start by keeping prescribed standards, you immediately create this level of credibility and competency to your supervisor. There are many areas where setting the standard can raise the entire team game. So make sure that you do that, and make sure you try to set it for the people around you as well. So one way of doing this is people have gotten used to getting up and talking to their slides as opposed to actually giving a presentation. So don't talk to your slides, talk to your audience, and don't read the slides. Put bullet points on there to help you understand what's needed, what you need to talk about, and be comfortable. Practice it. I give speeches every now and then, and I have to talk to audiences. And depending on my audience, I may practice a lot. I may not practice any because I may know the stuff inside out. But make sure you know what you're going to talk about in that, and show that you're competent at giving a presentation, and you'll be asked to give others. So develop your network. I can't say this enough, especially for women, and I talk about that a lot for women, is that you need to develop a network of people so that you can bounce ideas off of them. So when you go into your boss, you can say, you don't have to say, I think. You can say, I have bounced this off of several people at senior management level, lower management level, and this is what their thoughts are, and they agree with what I'm thinking. So can you imagine that? So instead of telling your boss, this is what I think we should do, you can say, here's how things look from a whole business approach. So you can say that here are some perspectives from sales, production, and HR. If you integrate all of that, here's what I think we should tell the CEO. So understand and have competencies to go into every different area of your job. So if you're affected by HR, and all of us are affected by HR, or if your job requires doing something with sales, or if you're required to do something with supply chain, make sure you have a network in those areas inside of your company and develop those networks. Reach out and touch someone and say, hey, look, I need to bounce an idea off of somebody. Can you give me somebody in that area? Feel free to ask your boss for those people. There's nothing wrong with that. And your boss will see that you're trying to create a network. So ask pro questions. So when you're in these networks and you're bouncing ideas off of somebody, you can't just bounce the idea, because the person may say, hey, yeah, that sounds like a good idea, or hey, yeah, that sounds like a bad idea. Ask probing questions to understand why it is a good idea or why it isn't a good idea. Or ask probing questions that say, hey, how can I help make this a better idea? Or what do you think would influence the CEO to accept this idea? Ask probing questions so you know what is good. And say, I understand that this might support your area, but what's a better way of supporting your area? Or it might be that it might affect their area in a negative way. And you could say, well, how can this minimize the effects on your organization? Because I know it's going to be a traumatic shift in the way the people think or the way the people work. So make sure that you bring in all different ideas. Become a choice architect. I kind of was lost on this one until I started when I started reading it. So think about giving a briefing or a business presentation. If you really want to emphasize something, maybe your speech becomes animated. Or if you're using slides, you ensure the issue is presented so that the point of emphasis really stands out. So in the choice architect, you're presenting your solution as maybe the only viable solution. You're influencing so much that they select your choice that you're presenting. So Horn describes a time when the Army was deciding whether to continue investing in an expensive niche weapon system that prioritized precision over lethality. At the time, the Army leadership had begun to shift its priorities to emphasize lethality and range in weapon systems. This presented Horn and his colleagues with an opportunity to nudge their leadership toward a weapon system that reflected those new priorities. So you need to be able to push leadership to go one way or the other. So if you're leading up, you become what Thaler and Sunstein referred to as a choice architect. Horn says you have the responsibility for organizing the context in which people make decisions. So if you can put the way that you want the decision made up front, then maybe you'll get that decision. You won't be successful every time, but there'll be many times where you are, and people will start respecting you because they see that the good choice is put at the beginning. So the one last thing I wanted to do is I wanted to start looking at the Big Dig. This was a huge project here in the United States where they were building an underground highway in Boston, and Boston has a terrible traffic problem, so they couldn't, and it was going underneath the existing system. So I want to read some of the obstacles that the project managers had to go through. And I'm going to go over this in a couple of ways, over a couple of, probably 3 or 4 podcasts, because I just want to talk about different aspects of what they had to face on the Big Dig. And it was, some would say it was a failure because it went over by many, many years, and it went over by millions and millions of dollars. But let's look at some of the obstacles they had to go through. So some of these obstacles they had was the downtown area through which the tunnels were being dug was largely landfill. So here they had to dig through old landfill. And it also had the existing Red Line and Blue Line subway tunnels, as well as innumerable pipes and utility lines that would have to be replaced or moved. So think about all of that that's going on while you're digging into this. There's chances that you might go into one of these tunnels. You might hit one of the subway lines, and that could be catastrophic. So tunnel workers encountered many unexpected geological and archaeological barriers, ranging from glacial debris, can you imagine glacial debris, to foundations of buried houses and a number of sunken ships lying within the reclaimed land. So it's just amazing to me what they had to go through. The project received approval from state environmental agencies in 1991 after satisfying concerns, including releases of toxins by the excavation and the possibility of disrupting the homes of millions of rats. And let me tell you, they did disrupt the homes of millions of rats, because there were rats walking all over Boston looking for new homes to go in. And this was something that the city wasn't ready for. Reworking such a busy corridor without seriously restricting traffic flow required a number of state-of-the-art construction techniques, because the old elevated highway, which had to remain operational, as I said, rested on pylons located throughout the designated dig area. So what did they do? They utilized a slurry wall technique to create 120-foot deep, 37 meters, concrete walls upon which the highway could rest. These concrete walls also stabilized the sides of the site, preventing cave-ins during the continued excavation process. Then what did they do for the subways, the rail systems? So they had a multi-interstate highway, also had to pass the South Station's 7 railway tracks, which carried over 40,000 commuters and 400 trains per day. So these commuters wanted to feel safe knowing that the tunneling was going on. So what did they do? They designed jacks that to support the ground and tracks to allow excavation to take place. Construction crews also used ground freezing, which I found absolutely amazing to me. I had no idea that existed. It's an artificial induction of permafrost to help stabilize surrounding ground as they excavated the tunnel. So think about all of these challenges that were going on, and all of the regulations and regulatory bodies that they had to deal with, not only at the state and local level, but also at the federal level. So we'll go through some of the other obstacles that they had to do, like in the construction phase and early planning, but I'll talk about those next week. So I'm Wanda Curley, and I'm your authority on project, program, and portfolio needs. This podcast was brought to you by PM Powered, your consulting company in project, program, and portfolio needs. I would love for you to follow me by going to PM Current and follow me on LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. Again, if you are a project manager or program manager, especially on the Big Dig in Boston, I'd love to hear from you. Or if you're on any of the projects that I've talked about today or in the past, or you're an HR person that are having to deal with technology disruptions, I would love to speak with you on my podcast. Please contact me at wanda@pmpower.com. I hope you have enjoyed this podcast, and I'll see you next week. Have a blessed week.